Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about a petroglyph in Arizona at an undisclosed location that may depict the extinct saber-toothed cat, or Smilodon fatalis. Now there's a lot of controversy about this, and I'm going to weigh in on this. Now, having worked in both archaeology and paleontology, two radically different fields that actually cross over, I'm going to share some thoughts. Now it's important we understand this because scientists don't interact. The fields often do not. People get in their own little tunnel vision and their own little silo, their own information silo, where they're just sharing information with others in their field directly. So, for example, horses, the ancient extinct American horse, paleontologists will give or take say that the species went extinct around 12,000 years ago. But at archaeological sites, human sites, they have uncovered horses far more recently, like 4,000 and even potentially 2,000 years ago, that were killed and butchered. Now, this rewrites paleontology, but the paleontologists and archaeologists are not communicating with each other, and so that information is blown out of their minds. And I've had to go toe-to-toe with some archaeologists and paleontologists on this, and I'm like, you do know that we actually know differently over here, right? Wait, really? What? So that's what you got to do. So in this video, I'm going to let me talk about saber-tooths, what they are, and then I'm going to talk about the precedence for the potential of this to be a actual depiction of a saber-tooth. So first of all, what is a saber-tooth? I'm going to take a look at the skull here. Saber-toothed cat. You may have grown up heard it being called a saber-toothed tiger. It's not a tiger. In the 1800s, Ice Age museums were competing with dinosaur museums, and it was much more like a circus, like Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. You got to have sensationalism to try to get people to come into your museum. So they would depict dinosaurs upright instead of horizontal like they were. And this is nowhere near as exciting as a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and so they gave it a false nickname, the saber-toothed tiger. Come one, come all, see the skeleton of the ferocious saber-toothed tiger. Well, it's not a tiger. It's not closely related to tigers at all. It's a saber-toothed cat, and these teeth look pretty impressive. It's a pretty cool cat. We're going to get into it in a second, but you got to understand, when we're talking about this petroglyph at this ancient site, well, there's three options what it could be. So let's talk about it. Well, there's other options as well. We'll get into that as well. But there were three saber-toothed cats anciently. So the first one is Smilodon, and the teeth are saber-toothed, but they don't extend down beyond the jaw. This is a powerful cat, 150, 200 pounds. And then the next one is Homotherium. Homotherium was all over Europe and Asia and North America, and also similar size and shape to the Smilodon. Big, old, powerful saber teeth, but they don't extend on beyond the lower jaw, really. Now, this is a very interesting cat because recently a couple of frozen kittens of these little baby Homotherium, scimitar-toothed cats, were found in Siberia. And I think they dated at like 34,000 years old, and they're perfect. They have the little paws, they have the whiskers and everything. And so genetic work is being done on those right now, but it's really neat that we have perfectly frozen scimitar-toothed cats that are a type of cat that has saber teeth. But this was the biggest of all the saber-toothed cats, the Smilodon fatalis. Now, if we're looking at a saber tooth, we're taking a look at the skeleton here. They have a big skull, but the first two vertebrae, the C1 and C2 vertebrae, are oversized. They're supercharged. They're built to handle a prey wheeling back and forth. And the front shoulder blades and front legs are like a gorilla. They're, again, oversized. Normally cats have bigger back legs. These have bigger front legs. And then the backside is normal, and they have a tiny tail. When you compare this to an African lion. The African lion is smaller, but not much smaller, but it's more evenly proportioned. You have the C1 and C2 vertebrae are normal size. They're powerful for the normal size, and the rest of the body is normally proportioned with a long tail. So one of the questions is, why did a saber-tooth have a short tail? We do not know, but it did. It's important when we're going to be looking at the petroglyph. Now, saber-tooths, their teeth, are serrated on the inner edge, but not on the outer edge. Now, it's interesting, the other two saber-tooths I mentioned, Smilodon and Homotherium, they're serrated both sides. This was a cut and a pull. Going to cut and pull back. Now, another thing is, that I cannot stand is wonderful paleo artists will depict this cat leaping up into the air, putting its jaws out like this and sinking its teeth down into an animal. Usually they depict it on a giant ground sloth. Well, that's not accurate. Watch right here, right where I'm tapping. So when you open up, when you open up right here, you see it's going to dislocate. Let me get it a little better. See that dislocation? So that means this is the widest you can open, which is 90 degrees, but these teeth are in the way. I'm just going to try to, I can't really show, but I always like to do demonstrations and show. They literally can't eat your chest. These teeth are so long that they get in the way. It's perfect for tearing out a throat. Cut through a throat of a large animal and pull out. Now, turns out this is a specialist camel killer. We had many camels here during the Ice Age. We had some camels as tall as giraffes. We had llamas. We had, they weren't domesticated, but they call them paleo llamas. So there was things the size of llamas all the way up to the size of giraffes in the camel family. All of these had the perfect neck to be eaten by saber tooths. So saber tooths and camels co-evolved together. In fact, from a much, you just got this stuff right here. I might as well show it, huh? I'm just going to do this. In the Eocene, these are what the saber tooths looked like. And they hunted tiny camels the size of a dog. And bigger camel doesn't get eaten. Bigger saber tooth eats camel. And so it was an arms race until by the Ice Age, you have these enormous saber tooths. I'm not going to put it on this video, but maybe I'll put it in another video. I have a camel neck, and I love to show how the vertebrae, the teeth, the width of the teeth, perfectly fit through and around the neck vertebrae to be able to rip out the throat, to be able to go through, get a camel, and rip out without hitting any bone. Whether you are hitting either side of the bone or in between the bone, either way, there's these big paddles that hang down. It's a perfect camel killer. We don't like that. We want the saber tooth to be like, I go around stabbing everything, but it's not what they did. They were a specialist camel hunter. People want to depict them hunting buffalo, want to depict them hunting, things, but they didn't. They weren't. They couldn't kill a mammoth. They weren't built for it. There were animals that did, like the American lion, biggest cat that ever lived. That cat, that would have gone after all those things, but the saber tooth did not. So the saber tooth, give or take, is generally thought to have gone extinct around 10,000 years ago. But let me let you in on a little secret. When it comes to paleontology, every professional paleontologist has their reputation on the line, and you don't want your reputation besmirched by suggesting something too outlandish. This is actually bad science. Being open-minded to any possibility is good science. You don't have to believe. You want proof, you want evidence, but you got to be open to possibilities. So, for example, if there's an animal, for example, like Gomphotherium, Gomphotherium is a type of woolly elephant, and it was said to be extinct, a million years ago, 500,000 years ago, something like that. And then they found one that had been hunted by Clovis hunters in New Mexico, and it dated back to like 9,000 or 10,000 years ago. It's like, oh, well, this rewrites everything. My point with that is to say the odds of you finding the very last individual of anything is highly unlikely. But the last individual you find, the most recently dated individual you can find, is going to be your truth mark. You're like, we know that woolly mammoths lasted at least until this long. Well, they may have lasted a lot longer, and the very last mammoth you may never find. In fact, the very last mammoth may have completely disintegrated and you never find it. But we know they made it at least until this time period. Yeah, but there could have been stragglers lasting forever. You look at coelacanths. Coelacanths were thought to be extinct millions of years ago. And then it turns out, nope, off the coast of Madagascar, they're still alive and well, and now we know all about that. It's pretty wild. Now that's an extreme. That's talking millions of years. The Ice Age is a few thousand years ago. Every living animal today is an Ice Age animal that made it until modern day, including us. We were around during the Ice Age and we're still here. So of this, when did mammoths go extinct? Well, let's just talk about this for a second here, because Humans depict things. We normally, the earliest art on caves and on cliff sides usually depicts animals and abstract figures. It isn't until later that we start to see humans depicted. So animals are what were on people's minds, and they seem to have depicted very real things of what they saw. The oldest of these are in Chauvet Cave in France, and there's incredible cave paintings there of cave lions and woolly rhinoceros and woolly mammoths, all kinds of extinct horses, all these crazy animals that they depicted beautifully and very accurately as well. And so that's like 40,000 years old or older. That's insane that it's that old. Well, the Ice Age, give or take, ended around 10,000 years ago, 12,000 years ago. And animals have been reducing range. Now, we know there are some extinct animals, like there was 14 species of antelope in America during the Ice Age. There's only one left now, the pronghorn. But they didn't all just, it's the end of the Ice Age, time to go extinct. For example, there was one species about the size of a little bigger than a jackrabbit, like a tiny little gazelle version, and it went extinct about 2,000 years ago. So you just missed it. So the possibility of something clinging on much after, and so what you have is if people are seeing these animals and then maybe they encounter one of these, and that's a holdout that's surviving, it's one of the last ones, and then it's such a wow thing because people haven't seen these for hundreds of years, and you see one, you're like, whoa, and you depict it in rock art, and then that story gets passed down for many generations. So people are still, long after they're extinct, sharing that encounter. You could have that sort of thing. So when it comes to woolly mammoths, in America, we know woolly mammoths and Columbian mammoths both were here. There were mastodon here, so they're big woolly elephants. The foreshore depictions we have, there is on a bone, I think it was in Florida or Texas, but there was carved an etching that's clearly a mammoth, and that one is kind of the hallmark in the New World that we know for sure. The other one that we also know for sure is a more recent discovery in Sand Island in Utah, in Bluff, Utah. And this site, they're kind of rudimentary, but there's a few of these. There's like I think there's 3 mammoths, and there's also what has been interpreted as also being a longhorn bison. Bison latifrons, big old 12-foot wide horns. I actually look at it and think that one could also be a mammoth, depending on how you translate the stuff. But the other ones are definitely mammoths. So those are 100% sure, Ice Age hunters, but maybe it's after the Ice Age ended. There's also a few others. There's a famous one that I think this is real, and I think it's long after the Ice Age. And this one, people look at it and they say, oh, it can't be. It's got to be a buffalo because it has a big old hump like a buffalo, and look, it's got split hooves, so it's got to be a buffalo. I'm like, yeah, but did you notice that it also has tusks, and it also has a big old long trunk? Bison don't have that, and mammoths did have a big old hump. So I admit that this could just be a bison with some weird swirly stuff, chiseled in around it. For me, I think this is not chiseled in by somebody who saw one, but maybe more by somebody who heard about one, that they were depicted, that the last hunters depicted, hey, we used to have these great creatures, and maybe you draw it in the sand and show them what they look like, and you're passing on these stories, these anecdotal stories. And the biggest animal in their sphere then was bison, which had cloven hooves, so you put that down. So that's what I think. I do think this is an honest depiction of a mammoth, but I think it might be, maybe more like, 4,000 years old, not 10,000 years ago. There's another one, and I've done whole video on this, and I think I'll put a link to a video I did on this particular petroglyph. This is in Utah, and it's called the Moab Mammoth, and I love visiting this one, and I think it's real. You look at the feet are splayed out like an elephant's feet, and it has a big old trunk. This is another, people are like, well, it doesn't have tusks. Well, females don't have tusks, or they're not very long. My belief on this one, we know it's more recent than the end of the Ice Age. My belief on this one is that this particular petroglyph, that if you look in the Colorado Plateau area, the canyons are just vast and endless and go on forever. It is not absurd to think that there could have been some last holdout populations of Columbian mammoths or woolly mammoths in the canyons that were not interacting with people. And then somebody maybe did see one and was like, oh my gosh, wow, see this incredible thing. What is this? I've heard stories, maybe oral histories going back of giant creatures, but now I'm seeing one of these. This is wild, and I'm going to depict it the best I can. So it's got a hump on the back. It's got, you know, a trunk, clearly, and it's got feet that are kind of splayed out. Now, some people try to say it's a bear. I don't think it's a bear. Bears don't have a trunk, for one, and I think that's a blaring important thing to understand. But who knows? Maybe it is just a weird bear. It could be. So that brings us to the whole point of this, which is this particular petroglyph in Arizona. Now, some people say that this is a saber tooth, and some people say it's not. Some people say it's a cougar. Well, it's not a cougar. Look at the tail. Cougars have a big, old, long, swishy tail. Bobcats have a short tail. Saber tooths have a short tail. So what do we see here? Well, we see an exaggeration of features. When you look at the feet, you have these big old over-the-top claws spreading out, which makes sense. You know, claws, you know, that's like the part of the killing side of a cat. But there's also these enormous saber teeth. Bobcats do have long fangs. So do all cats. So does every carnivorous animal is going to have. I mean, you look behind anything. It's any carnivorous mammal. The canine teeth are going to be long, but in almost all of them, they're covered up. They're covered up by the mouth, covered up by the skin. And if you look at the skull, sure, on the skull, they have these long fangs, but they don't stick out. They don't protrude. Nothing like a saber tooth. On this depiction, these things are enormous, and they're sticking way far down. That is not a hallmark. When you think of a bobcat, you think of big feet, short bobbed tail, big ears, you know, maybe whiskers, something like that. Those would be the kind of things, the attributes and the traits that an artist probably would notice. You wouldn't be thinking, big old huge fangs sticking way down from the mouth. That's not what you would think. So I think this is actually a valid candidate for, so again, my point is that this probably would not have been made during the Ice Age, but that it might have been after, you know, maybe 5,000 years ago, something like that. Somebody depicted either what they saw, maybe they encountered one of the last saber tooths, or maybe there were still stories, because oral histories hand down. You might have even had a skull that got passed down from earlier times that got passed and passed and passed. And the idea that, hey, there used to be these big, scary animals. But again, short tail. And some people have pointed out, well, look at the side of it. It's spotted. And bobcats are kind of spotted. So it's clearly depicting a bobcat. Well, first of all, if you do petroglyphs, which I'm going to put a link in this video also so you can see. I did a video on how petroglyphs are actually made because people do not understand. The peck and grind, the indirect percussion, to remove a whole surface area, the patina off a whole surface area, is a lot of work. So a lot of times people would just kind of do it hit and miss to roughly show this area is a bit different. And it's not trying to depict spots, but maybe it is trying to depict spots. We don't know the coloration of a saber tooth. Saber tooths may have been spotted. So saying that this particular petroglyph is spotted does not mean that it couldn't be a saber tooth. So I put it out there to be that it's open. Based off of the patina, it is suggested that this was made after the Ice Age. I am proposing that that does not mean that it doesn't depict a saber tooth. We know for a fact that we keep finding Ice Age skeletons, especially in my area in Utah. We keep finding skeletons that archaeologists keep finding them, and they don't realize they're rewriting paleontology. I gave you the horse example earlier. We've had camels date extremely recently as 3,000 years, and nobody's talking about it. Saber tooths very well could have lasted a lot longer. We don't know how long they lasted. And again, an animal that iconic surely would have totemic power. The symbol of a cat with that big of just these truly gargantuan saber teeth. that's going to fit in your mythology. That's going to last long after, even if you go extinct. Surely that's going to get passed down as a totemic creature and might still be depicted. So even if this petroglyph was made long after the cat was extinct, and even if it was made by somebody who never saw one, I'm also putting out there that this petroglyph still could be a depiction of a saber-toothed cat, of a Smilodon fatalis. So something to think about. Always remember to stay open-minded. It's good to be skeptical, but don't be a skeptic. A skeptic is somebody who has a predetermined decision. It's like, nope, I will not be open-minded to anything. I am a skeptic. No, be skeptical. Be like, I want to see evidence. I'm open to hearing theories, because hearing theories when it comes to archaeology and paleontology is good. It opens your mind. It opens your mind to other possibilities, and maybe that other possibility is going to help you find the actual answer. But if you're closed-minded or like, nope, I've read in a book that this is how it is, so this has to be the last cutoff date that saber-tooths were extinct by 10,000 years ago. Probably. But they might have continued a lot longer. And the memory of them may have been continually handed down even further to much more recent times. It absolutely could have. So whether or not this is just a bobcat with insane fangs and saber teeth that look exactly like this, sticking out the front, or whether it's bobcat or saber tooth, don't know. But I think it's worth keeping an open mind, and it's worth visiting sites like this and sharing. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about the site, and I hope this gets some good discussion going on the possibilities. But always remember that life is a gift. So never stop learning and never stop exploring. We'll see you next time.